Hello, so since we're doing knives, today I wanted to talk about my wife's belt knife. It is an Ontario Army 95 Q or P3. There's a lot of names you'll hear this from. That is a cat. He wants to help, but he doesn't have thumbs, so he can't help us. Good job, cat. It's a design based on the World War II design, supposedly carried by quartermasters, and recreated by Ontario Arms. This is not an original. This is obviously an Ontario Arms replica. So let's go ahead and start with the sheath. So the sheath is, standard, probably 4 or 5 ounce leather, machine stitched and also brass riveted. We have brass snaps. We have 2 securing points, one here down by the blade, and then one up here by the handle. So it's a pretty good construction. We've got more than enough room in here for even a 6-inch belt high cat. If the only improvement I would really make on this would possibly to make this a little smaller so it didn't slop as much, and maybe put a tie down tab down here on the bottom. This is a fairly heavy knife. Cat's gonna help today.
That's Cat's
So I hope you guys are okay with the cat helping today.
Cat's table.
Anyway. Anyways, so that is the sheath construction. The cat's gonna help us today. I hope everyone's okay with this. His name is Milk Dud. He's awful. The other thing is, I am not a big fan of these secondary securings down here on the bottom, especially with a very sharp knife. Because they're always closed, they tend to, even when you open them, stay that way. And when you draw out the knife blade tends to score the inside of it. And if you look in here, you'll see a couple of cut marks. It's one of the things my wife also does not like about this. But we've looked at the sheath, so let's go ahead and look at the knife. Once again, open both secures and then fold that back so you don't cut that off. Also, don't cut your hand. So we pull it out, and we see it's a fairly large blade. Very good and wide, less than a 1/4 inch thick at the spine. You can see there's the mark, Ontario, USA. Okay, you can see there's the mark, Ontario, USA. And if you turn it over, you will see that it says Quartermaster Army 95. And that's just the model it was based after, was the Ontario Quartermaster 95. You will notice that it's very similar to K-bars and things like that. It's actually a little wider. We have a fuller in here on the side to be fancy. It takes some weight away, but not enough. The cat is very helpful today. It's a 440 steel, the stainless. I want to say it's Rockwell around like 54, something like that. You can see there's brass stacked up here on the top. We've got a good place for our finger to go so it's not sliding too much. We've got a stop here, and believe it or not, in the construction of knives, that little notch here is very important because what happens is as liquids run down the end of the blade, they'll stop here because they don't have a further surface to run, and they'll actually drip off there. That's why you'll see notches and things like that built into blades specifically for that purpose. The butt cap is a solid piece of brass that you could hammer things home with. The handle is made out of what's called stacked leather, and what it is, it's rings of leather that's compressed together with usually a screw cap here in the end, and then it's burnished and polished, and you get a good handle. It's got a good feel to it. It lasts quite a long time, just like your original K-bars have. The blade is, like I said, very thick. We've got a good cutting surface. We've got our drop point here, not too severe, but nice enough that it'll help for if you have to, penetrate something. A good thick spine. If you needed to use this and hammer on it, you'd be okay. It's a very hefty weapon. I find it extremely heavy. However, my wife loves it. And it is based on a fighting knife. It would be good for that, but this is also a very good all-around knife. If you were going into heavy bush or if you were going into the northern woods, this would be a fine knife to take with you. There's a lot of steel here. It does hold a good edge. It's heavy enough that you could crack walnuts with it. You could split fine wood with it, but it also has a nice grind to it. We don't have a hollow grind here. We actually have a straight grind. You come flat down here on the blade, and then it's beveled in, and then you have a secondary bevel onto the edge. Makes it fairly easy to sharpen. It also doesn't thicken up over the years like you'll get with a hollow grind, but you won't get that nice even push away from things when you get into it. It, like I said, holds a fine edge. It's got nice lines. It's very flashy, and it doesn't. Once again, because it's stainless steel, it's going to rust less. Remember, stainless steel does not mean it won't stain. It just means it will stain less. So cleaning it, you won't have to clean it as much. However, as you can see, the brass does tend to tarnish, especially where your hands are going to be touching it a lot. And for a lot of people, that's not a big deal. You know, they don't mind the tarnish. They don't mind that patinaed finish. Some people, they want it shiny, bright yellow brass. But as an overall knife, my complaints is that it is just too heavy and too thick. However, if you have the phantoms from diabetes or something like that, something that's a little heavier, you're going to be able to feel a little more. And once again, it's a very robust construction. This is a full tang, by the way. This blade runs all the way down through here. This is not a half tang or a rat. I mean, here at this end, it's probably threaded so that this cap can be threaded on. I highly doubt that it's just soldered on there because it held up quite well over the years. They run usually about $60. An original from World War II can run you a lot more. But if you're looking for a good heavy trail knife that'll really hold up to a lot of abuse, I would say this is a pretty good one. My wife uses it. She's used it in dressing out animals. She's used it carrying it in the woods, and she's never had an issue with it. So once again, this is the Ontario Quartermaster 95. If you have one, you've had a different experience, or you have questions or something like that, go ahead and leave it in the comments. Let me know. I'd love to hear from you. And thank you.